I think I'm entitled.
You want answers!
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth!
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
I woke up this morning, got myself a gun. Mama always said I'd be the chosen one.
All right, I do want to get to the latest right now coming in out of the north as the Israel Defense Forces released video a short time ago. Take a look at your screen showing Israeli fighter jets striking Hezbollah military structures overnight in Lebanon. The IDF saying the strikes are in retaliation for the terror group's rocket and drone attacks on civilians there in northern Israel. A drone attack earlier in the week in northern Israel killed an Israeli reservist and injured at least 10 other people. And now Israel's top military general in the north says the army is ready to wage war on the Hezbollah terror group if need be.
If need be, and it's becoming increasingly evident it will be need be. That's a report from Fox earlier today about how Israel is beginning to ramp up retaliation against Hezbollah, operating mostly out of Lebanon. This is, again, another powder keg that's already been lit. We'll just see how fast the fuse is going to burn. We got a lot to cover for you for the next 2 hours. Glad to have you with us. Here we are, June 7, 2024. And before we wrap up today's program, I have a couple of remarks I want to share with you regarding yesterday, D-Day for Normandy, as our troops went ashore June 6, 1944. So there's something special I want to share regarding that before we wrap up today's program. And, of course, I remind you that when we're on the air, Monday through Friday for you, right here on News Talk STL, from 6 to 8 p.m., when we're on the air, you can also watch the program as it's underway. You go to Larry Connors USA, Rumble, Facebook, Twitter, or News Talk STL, Rumble, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. If you miss anything and you want to go back and pull it up and listen or watch again and also share, I always encourage you to share. You go to LarryConnorsUSA.com, Larry Connors USA Facebook. Everything is branded Larry Connors USA. It's impossible to miss us, and I thank you for your continued support and the way you are sharing these videos and audio podcasts with others. It multiplies quickly with your help. I do want to take one moment to remind you quickly that you need to put this on your calendar if you haven't already. June 25, we are hosting Saving America 2024. Focusing on the economy and the courts. Our guest from the Heritage Foundation will be Joel Griffith, which, by the way, he should be joining us Monday. That's on the schedule at this point. And also Zach Smith, a legal expert for the Heritage Foundation. June 25th, St. Charles Funny Bone. I can get you free tickets. And you do need a ticket to get in the door. And here's how you get that free ticket. Our tickets. You go to newstalkstl.com. Newstalkstl.com. This is, again, June 25. This will be taking place 2 days before the first scheduled presidential debate between Trump and Biden, June 27. And we will be having a debate watch party at Johnny's Hideout on that date. So we'll fill you in on that as we move forward. Back to today's events. If the Israeli leaders are watching how Hezbollah continues to escalate and begin to continue to hit some of the northern part of Israel, they're not just going to simply take the hits over and over again. So the question to be raised for Israel, and it's a very legitimate question, and on one hand I can give you the answer right away, and that is Israel ready for war?
That's one of the main options that's on the table. Therefore, you see that IDF is preparing for the past few months for that situation. And apparently we're getting closer. I don't really buy the 15th of June we're going to war rumors. But is Israel prepared to go to war? Yes, definitely. I think it's one of the clear options that we have. It's one of the best ways, it's a sad thing to say, to eliminate the threat of Hezbollah from the north. Hezbollah has escalated in the past month, especially May versus April is very clear, doubling the number of UAVs, aerial attacks, doubling the number of anti-tank missiles, both challenging the Iron Dome and having a lot of success against our people.
That's Ivor Levine speaking on behalf of the Israelis that, yes, we're ready. They're already at war with Hamas, obviously, and other terrorist groups, but to go specifically to war against Hezbollah. The date June 15th has been floated around. But as he said, I would not hold to that date, but it depends upon what Hezbollah does. Now, maybe they realize, oh, they're already talking tough, the Israelis, and we see what they did to Gaza. Maybe we should not punch the bear anymore. But they may well do it. So if they decide to go ahead and go after Hezbollah wherever they're located, what would be the response of Hezbollah? How would they start responding?
All targets are open, whereas right now they're maintaining their target area to the northern front, 5-10 kilometers from Lebanon, and trying to hit mostly military targets, about 55% military targets, and the rest are civilian targets, but mostly in areas evacuated from civilians, or at least 90% of civilians. Once we go to a full-scale war, Haifa, Sfat, Tveria, and obviously the Holy Grail would be somewhere around Tel Aviv. On our side, it would mean a ground maneuver, an invasion into South Lebanon, hitting Hezbollah in their own court, and not only artillery and accurate strikes like we're doing right now.
Those would accelerate. But he's right. If Hezbollah decides to accelerate at their end, they'll be doing what they can to reach Jerusalem, Tel Aviv. We need to be in prayer about this, that this does not continue to escalate. But when you're dealing with terrorists and a jihadist approach to wipe out anyone that is not their religion and conforming to Sharia law as they see it, plus their innate desire to destroy Jerusalem and kill all Jews, and behind them Americans, it is going to take more than prayer. It's going to take some action, and not just idle threats. And Israel does not make idle threats. Against this backdrop, if it comes June 15, this might change what I'm getting ready to tell you. It might be delayed until after that. It might happen on this very date. I'm talking about July 24. What is July 24? July 24, Benjamin Netanyahu is due to arrive in the States for a joint meeting with Congress. Chris Livesay from CBS News.
It is a bipartisan visit, but the big question is whether or not he's actually going to meet with President Biden. It's a very awkward time for the two to be in the same city at the same time. If Biden does choose to meet with him, what is that going to look like? Does he smile when he meets Benjamin Netanyahu, or does he scowl at him because of the ongoing rift that exists between the White House and Netanyahu's conduct of this war? And does he want to risk alienating the moderates or the conservatives in the United States just before an election? It's a very, very big question, especially as we have President Biden now starting to worry about what the relationship is going to be like with his presumed opponent in the next presidential election, former President Donald Trump.
Well, it's more than presumed. It will be Donald Trump. A convicted felon, as the left will remind you. A badge he wears proudly. But the key here is the timing. This is scheduled July 24. What happens between Israel and Hezbollah between now and then could dramatically change events. And when Netanyahu comes to America, no doubt Trump will schedule a meeting with him because they would both like to see each other. And last night, Trump held his first rally since being convicted in the New York City trials. They were holding it in Phoenix. Actually, it was inside the Phoenix Dream City Church, a massive facility. But getting inside took time because of security needs and precautions, and so many showed up. It was a slow process. Temperatures were 110, and folks were still outside waiting to get in. There were a dozen reported cases of heat exhaustion. But I'm looking at a report from the Huffington Post, and they say multiple cases of people falling down because of the heat waiting to hear Trump. I just gave you a precise number, a dozen. My number might be closer to 11 or 13, to be honest. But multiple indicates to me massive numbers above 12, does it not to you? The Huffington Post knows that, and every reporter that claims to be factual and accurate, they throw these numbers in like they'll say thousands for some event, and it's 2,500. Well, when you say thousands, I envision tens or 20s of thousands. But multiple suffered heat exhaustion waiting to get in and hear Trump. But when they got inside, they were primed to hear Donald Trump.
I just went through a rigged trial in New York with a highly conflicted, and I mean highly conflicted, judge, where there was no crime. It was made up, fabricated stuff. They didn't want to bring the case. They could have brought the case 7 years ago. It's only when you run for office they bring cases. But they would have done that 7 years ago thing, not in the middle of my presidential campaign, where we're beating Biden, by the way, by a lot. Did you see? And by the way, right after the announcement of this, more campaign funds were given to this campaign than any campaign they think in history. Almost $400 million.
$400 million. And at least a third, as of the early count, came from folks who had never contributed to any political campaign before. And these new surveys that are out that Trump was referring to, I want to break them down for you before this hour is out in more detail. But also I want to share with you, of course, the issue is Joe Biden wanted a very controlled environment for the debates. And Trump said, I'm sure they thought I would say I'm not going to yield and deal with those kinds of demands. Before we get into those, I want to share with you what the White House staff and those surrounding Biden are trying to tell you, and this is the story they're peddling. To use the quote, the president is utterly on his game. He is the wisest, most knowledgeable person in the room. Who said that? You think it would be someone listed as anonymous? No, actually. It actually came from Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm. She said this article that recently came out from the Wall Street Journal portraying Biden as mentally slipping and quoting some anonymous Democrat sources say, yeah, we don't see him as he was earlier. It takes 15 minutes to get a meeting started because he got to walk around the room greeting everyone. He's doing it deliberately, patiently, slowly. And then when he gets to talking, we can barely hear him. We got to lean in. But, of course, they were not being identified. But Jennifer Granholm says that article was BS. Now, again, this is the Energy Secretary, Jennifer Granholm, who, by the way, was making a lot of money on the push for electric vehicles. Of course, she had to divest herself of that, but that doesn't mean as we push for climate change and pushing electric vehicles that when she comes out of office, she can't get right back into it and deal with what she got. I don't know if she put it into trust, she sold it. I don't know how she did it. I could care less. But her comments here her comments I'm going to read to you. They're staggering. She says, the president is utterly on his game. He is the wisest, most knowledgeable person in the room. He asks the toughest questions. He has the keenest insights on the complex questions brought to him. He is sharp, thoughtful, and wise. And Jennifer Granholm is an idiot. That's my addition. But again, back to the debate issue. And Trump said, they thought they would trap me. It didn't work.
They offered me this debate, and they thought I wouldn't take it because it's on CNN. It's Fake Tapper. Does anyone know him, Fake Tapper? They wanted it to be sitting down, seated, and zero audience. And they wanted it to be short, also very short. And I said, I'll take it. Because you know what? They thought I wouldn't take it. Being on CNN, and Dana Bash is very tough to Trump. Dana Bash, another beauty. So I have Dana Bash and Fake Tapper. And they thought, here's what we'll do. We'll offer him the worst thing that could be offered. These two anchors, Dana Bash, Fake Tapper, CNN, no audience, nobody. Your children, your wife, nobody can be there. Oh, that's going to be interesting for him, though, isn't it? Nobody can be there. And they want you sitting down. So I said, I'll take it. They thought what was going to happen is that I'd say, I won't do it. And then they'll say, Trump doesn't want to debate. I want to debate. We should have many debates, frankly. We really should. Because we have to find out why they like open borders where people pour in from, right, Paul? Why do they, who could like an open border?
Who could like an open border? And, of course, now Biden's got a plan in place to squeeze it tighter. We're going to let him in, but only so many a day. And he said he could do nothing in the beginning, recall? Saying, there's nothing I can do. Well, he signed an executive order when he first got into office to overturn Trump's order on remain in Mexico while we process your asylum case. Because you can come here for asylum. That's a legitimate claim, but it's got to be legitimate. He did, by executive order, cancel that, then claimed he couldn't do anything else about the border, and then suddenly, as we get closer to the election time and they realize this thing is biting us in the butt, I'll sign an executive order saying, we're only going to let so many in, and then we'll shut the border down for a few days, and then a few more can come in. That's assuming that those folks are going to continue to go through the ports he's designated. In the next hour, the Trump VP announcement, could we be getting closer to that? Could we be getting closer? We have to be getting closer, but how soon, and could it happen within weeks? Before this hour is over, a close and revealing view of the latest Trump-Biden polls I was discussing. Something very wrong inside the Biden camp, and I mean really wrong. Kellyanne Conway, former counsel for Trump when he was president, and also a political analyst, will review that for us. What could be wrong other than Joe Biden himself? A lot. We'll break it down for you. That'll be before this hour is over. Coming up, a major pro-life organization has an issue with Trump and his anti-abortion stance. Lock and load. Ready on the right.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
Pigeons, they are everywhere, and they're very good at dive bombing freshly washed cars. Wellington Environmental reminds you those droppings are more than a nuisance. They can be a major health issue, especially massive droppings on buildings or in parking garages. So who do you call to safely clean it up? You do what many hospitals, universities, public buildings already do. You call Wellington Environmental. Wellington Environmental has been dealing with all kinds of hazards for 35 years. Special people, special skills, special equipment. Wellington gets it done. So to avoid health issues ranging from pigeon droppings to mold to chemical leaks, contact Wellington. 314-644-4930. 644-4930. WellingtonSTL.com. Wellington Environmental, your world cleaner, better, safer. Be well with Wellington.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
Horace, Americans individually have lost over $4,000 in income and over $7,000 where you have a household with both parents working.
It shouldn't be, it's the economy stupid. We should just say, stupid! It's the economy. Unbelievable the devastation that Americans are feeling.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps, weekdays at 3:30 on News Talk STL.
If you haven't been to Lit Cigar Lounge in the district at Chesterfield, you're missing a great experience. Premium cigars, drinks, spacious seating, TVs in every direction. This and more explain why Lit was voted Best Cigar Lounge 2 years in a row. Now you can be at Lit and order Napoli Brothers pizza and pasta delivered to you. In fact, Napoli's just a few doors down. A coal-fired oven giving a unique taste. Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta, now open in the Chesterfield district.
Are you thinking about buying medicine online? A search for online pharmacies yields more than 20 million results. But which ones can you trust? Medicines bought from unlicensed online pharmacies can be dangerous. You may get a fake drug, your condition may get worse, or you may experience a bad reaction. Don't put your health at risk. To learn how to find an online pharmacy that's safe and legal, visit fda.gov/BeSafeRx. A message from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration.
Great news for my sponsor, Napoli Sea. And it's no surprise to me nor hundreds who have dined there. The first time I entered, it was clear Napoli Sea is unique. The decor, the fish, imaginative cocktails, and of course Napoli Sea is right next door to Napoli 3 in St. Charles. Napoli 2 is in Town and Country. The original Cafe Napoli is in Clayton, and I'm honored to endorse each of them. Visit any of the Cafe Napolis.
This is News Talk STL. This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Welcome back. My guest we've had on numerous times before and always brings a lot to the table for us. He is the CEO and president of 40 Days for Life. It is a Christian advocacy group, obviously, that is very big on protecting the unborn. Sean Carney, glad to have you back on board, sir.
Good to be back. Thanks for having me.
Well, there's an issue we have discussed before, but I'm seeing it begin to ramp up again. Monday, Trump is to meet virtually, basically, with the Danbury Institute. Now, that's a Christian advocacy group that advocates for a complete ban on abortions. That's more stringent than Trump's position. Where does this stand with 40 Days for Life between Trump and the Danbury Institute?
Well, it's great, and it shows that the lie that was put out about Trump, which is he doesn't care, it goes back to the states, and he'll do nothing in a second term for the pro-life movement, was total BS. To say that things are not always on the table for Donald Trump is to be the most naive human being on earth. So
I agree.
I'm glad that he's meeting with them, and it shows he's open to all options.
But it's been pointed out as well, and you and I have had this discussion. Trump position as expressed currently does not meet even what 40 Days for Life wants. And in fact, a Politico article had pointed out that he's disappointed a lot in the pro-life movement despite Roe v. Wade.
Yeah, I think that'll go away as the election gets closer as far as the broader pro-life movement. I mean, for 40 Days for Life, we obviously, want what Justice Thomas wanted, which is to recognize all humans under the 14th Amendment. And obviously the country's not there yet. And so Trump is just part of that. He's not there yet. That's probably where we're headed. I don't know if that's a decade or 2 decades, but we're not going to go back to having free states and slave states by having abortion-free states where you're a human in Texas, but you're not in Sacramento, California. So that inconsistency is going to take time to work itself out. What is good about Trump is the pro-life movement elected him in 2016 because that election was about the courts. He delivered, and I just think it's hard being mad at your favorite uncle. And the pro-life movement, I think, will come around.
Well, let me break it down more detail. Yeah, I like your analogy between we're not going back to slavery, and some states will have it and some won't reference abortion. Trump deciding at this point not to push for a federal abortion ban. Let me get you on the record again on that. Where do you stand on that? Should we have a federal abortion ban, total, no exceptions, as I assume you would prefer?
Well, obviously, I think that there should be, but that should go through the Constitution. That would need to go through the Constitution, which is already in there, that we have not only a right to life in the Declaration of Independence, but the 14th Amendment and the Constitution. You're relying on the same parts of the Constitution the pro-abortionists were relying on, a woman's right to make her own decision. No, because that wasn't in the Constitution, which is why the Supreme Court overturned Roe. It's just that the Supreme Court didn't.
The abortion wasn't in there, but the right to your life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness is.
Right to life, and that the problem with just making that up is it's not based on facts or science or biology, and so there's so much precedent protecting unborn children in our country. That's why we put Scott Peterson on death row in California.
All right, we just ripped the federal abortion from the Constitution, and as it was, quote, law of the land, we've given it back to the states, putting it back in the federal hands, if that's what you think would be better. Does that not open up the door? Well, they'll just flip that around again.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying we don't have to put it anywhere. It's already in there, and it's only a matter of time until we recognize that obviously we protect unborn children in our country all the time. We don't even allow pregnant women to get on a freaking roller coaster. And so we, of course, do that. We're just inconsistent now that it's between the states. And I don't think that that's going to work long term. It's too inconsistent. And so I do want to say, since you asked me about this, I support Trump not advocating for a ban because he's not going to get a ban that anybody's happy with. And I think his idea of a 15-week ban was so stupid. I'm so glad that he bailed on it. I think he was pressured by other people to do it, and he did not do it. The first time Trump says, I support whatever abortion ban, he'll get killed. Number one, he won't win over one independent or Democrat. Also, they'll say, well, he wants to ban all abortions. And I think it would hurt him politically. And that matters. He's a politician. He's gonna take political angles. So I think politically that was smart. And he's just not going to get a ban that the pro-life movement likes. He's certainly not going to get a ban that the left likes. They want abortions at 40 weeks.
We've been down this road before again. For the audience that's missed it, and you express yourself very well. Sean Carney, CEO, president of 40 Days for Life. And I'd raised the question previously, how much do you guys have to bend to accept that Trump is not going to push for a total ban and that you're willing to kind of go along to get along, basically?
We don't have to bend at all. I don't think most pro-life people do. I mean, it's president. We're stuck with the two same candidates. One is extremely pro-abortion, and one was the most pro-life president in the history of our country, based on his record alone. So I don't think it's a difficult.
And yet, it's still short of what you want.
Yeah, well, that's what makes America awesome, because we get what we want and we want more, and that's why we're not Europe yet.
Do you believe that let me correct that. I know you believe that allowing states to set their own policies is a more effective approach, and yet I'm still hearing you say that if we could have a federal ban on abortion, it'd be better yet.
Of course, because we're in limbo, right? So these states, right, let's just take the Constitution, that are winning in the pro-abortion favor. It's an inappropriate vote. We don't get to put whether Puerto Ricans are Americans on the ballot in Florida or California. We don't get to put whether blacks or Asians or white teenagers are people. And when you vote on whether somebody's a person or person, it's inappropriate. You need an overall governing document to correct yourself, and ours is called the Constitution, and we're all protected under the 14th Amendment.
Well, the Danbury Institute, again, advocates for a complete ban on abortions.
So did Justice Thomas. the whole consensus was it was too much too soon. You know, I mean, that's not law. That's where the Supreme Court kind of folded. If you look at it like they're supposed to close the blinds and just, you know, interpret law, you would easily just say, well, when does life begin? That's when we have to protect it. And that would be conception. But they didn't do that. They sent it back to the states. I think that was pretty predictable, that they weren't going to just recognize the unborn and ban it altogether under the 14th Amendment. And so that's where we are. We're kind of in limbo, and we're figuring it out. And I'm saying long term, it's going to be hard to escape the biological reality of the unborn child.
So we're 2 years plus since the overturn of Roe v. Wade. Is that about right? My timetable closed? Okay. How many children do you estimate or have you documented have been born that might have been aborted? And I'm not talking about kids that were just born, but the parents that were considering abortion and then decided maybe for simple and the most basic sanctity of life, or maybe because it was too hard to go to the next state or whatever to get an abortion. How many kids might have been saved so far?
Yeah, well, I know here in Texas it's over 300,000 since we had the heartbeat bill going back a few years before the overturning of Roe. But nationally, this is somewhat comical and common sense. The birth rate is going up because if you don't have an abortion, the baby lives. Because abortion kills a baby.
Yeah.
So there's more babies being born, and apparently women aren't robots that are just, you know, manufactured and trained to magnetically go to abortion clinics and have abortion. They do think about it, and when it was overturned, they thought about it a lot, and they questioned it, as did the women who had abortions years ago because it was legal. Now they question it.
And there's increasing use of ordering by mail abortion drugs.
That's still a pilot program. People think that's going on like in all states, and it's not. And a lot of states regulate it, but that is happening, and that's definitely going to be the future. But that's not a gimme. That has a horrible word of mouth reputation because the women that do it, they pass the baby in their apartment or at the prom or in a shopping mall, and it's absolutely tragic and scarring. So the women that have those abortions aren't exactly waving, you know, the banner for it afterwards.
Yeah, but I can't imagine the trauma, but I will say this. It's my prayer every night that from these children that women were either thinking about getting an abortion or will in the future and they don't. From these children, God raises up new religious and other world leaders we need. Who knows how many we have lost over the decades.
Well, we know we've aborted 74 million since 1973. And, you know, the other thing you're asking about, you know, not only the birth rate, we've closed abortion facilities in New York and California since the overturning of Roe v. Wade.
Yeah.
This is market driven now, and that's where we can win until we get our act together at the federal level.
And I want to hear stories in the future that I would have been aborted, but I'm here and I'm serving as a new president and bringing new things and inventions, things that we've lost. I want to thank you very much, Sean, for your time, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Enjoy. Have a blessed weekend. Sean Carney, 40 Days for Life. Coming up, this is one of these things about the polls that are happening, and they're all over the place, and one report will blow you away.
You can connect with Larry on Twitter at Larry Connors USA.
John Beal knows that right after a hailstorm, new roofing companies start popping up everywhere. But the Small Business Administration reports 96% of them go out of business within the first 5 years. So how good is that warranty? John Beal started in the roofing business helping his granddad and his dad. Always offering the best roof, best price, best guarantee. John Beal Roofing, not some fly-by-the-night operation. Call my friend John, 1-800-NEW-ROOF, 1-800-NEW-ROOF.
The United States Deputy Sheriff's Association is a national nonprofit and the largest non-governmental provider of services to law enforcement. The USDSA assists city, county, state, and federal agencies with free safety equipment donations and officer survival training, along with cash donations to families of law enforcement officers who perished in the line of duty, a citizen awareness program, and more. For more information on United States Deputy Sheriff's Association, please visit usdeputy.org.
Hey, this is a great time to get fantastic deals at Ackerman Toyota, #1 volume dealer in the area. Why? Very simple. They want to make you happy. They'll come up with a deal that puts you in the driver's seat. You'll be smiling as you drive off the lot. You got a trade in? You're going to get top dollar from Ackerman. Looking for a premium used car or truck? Ackerman is the answer. Ackerman Toyota at Hampton and 44. AckermanToyota.com. Ackerman Toyota for life.
News, analysis, opinion.
USA, USA. That's a big game, man.
President Xi's really losing control.
People in China have been asking me about people mowing each other down in the mall.
This is News Talk STL.
It is their responsibility.
He is a metastasizing agent.
We're all keeping a close eye on this.
Illegal immigration is crazy right now.
The United States is not being overrun.
News Talk STL.
It is a crisis at the border without question.
At NewsTalkSTL.com.
My sponsor, McGuire Moving, has job openings for drivers and movers, offering competitive pay. You can be off every night if you want or on the road. You're off every other weekend. Full benefits, insurance, paid vacations. But McGuire is a very good company. So here's a very important requirement. You must excel in making customers happy. Full or part-time job? More information, go to McGuireMoving.com. Apply online at McGuireMoving.com/careers.
This is News Talk STL.
Boom, 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 boom. Gonna shoot you right down. Take you
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
New Fox News polls reveal former President Trump leading President Biden in Nevada, in Arizona, and in Florida. And the two are tied in the usually blue state of Virginia. Voters in all four states say they trust former President Trump over President Biden on handling both the economy as well as immigration. Meanwhile, President Biden shares his thoughts on the upcoming debate with former President Trump last night in an ABC interview. Watch this.
Things he said are off the wall. I want to be a dictator on day one. I want to move in a direction where he talks about, suspending the Constitution. All I have to do is hear what he says, remind people what he says and what I believe and what he believes. He's about him. I'm about the country.
Well, no, Joe Biden, you're not about the country because you open our border to invaders. And you're just now beginning to kind of constrict it a bit because you realize this is going to hurt me at the election polls. And there's another story that goes with this, by the way. Some are saying, why he doesn't mind shutting it off now and maybe drawing the ire of the true leftists, the regressive progressives or progressive regressives. He's got enough votes inside the country now that will work for him. They're not supposed to be able to vote, but they're all being given packets wherever they're sent, and in there is a form to file for an application to vote. And if they fill it out and then they vote, the word came down the other day that, well, if they vote, it's illegal, but if they can say, I don't know, I thought I was allowed to vote. They gave me the We're going to have to be so careful in this election, as we all of them, going forward. I mean, we're at a real big tilting point here and have been for some time as to if this nation truly is going to rely upon voters and not bureaucrats dictating who's going to get into office. And then to counter, what Maria was talking about, the Fox polls looking very good for Trump. Let me share a couple other views for you. Could always try to give you some balance, and then you can make up your own mind. But I'm looking at a piece from The Hill. Publication primarily leads to the left. It is reporting on events around the Congressional Hill and so forth. Trump lead over Biden slips after former president's conviction, according to some of their polling. And then there's another poll that says 40% in new poll say that Trump should be sentenced to prison in the hush money case. See, if wearing a sign that says convicted felon, I'm voting for a convicted felon, or I've got another 34 reasons now to vote for a convicted felon, Those are all Trump supporters of all colors and gender, and there are only two genders, and religions and ethnicities. And yet I'm seeing the left continue. Well, we got to put polls out that say otherwise. Kellyanne Conway served as a counselor for Trump when he was in office and also has become a political analyst as her ex-husband now. I don't know where they stand in the relationship, could care less. But if she got rid of him, George Conway, good. She should have. I don't know how they ever got together to begin with. That's one of those matches made. I don't know where it got made or how it got made, but it looked like prearranged for some reason. Bottom line is Kellyanne Conway and her view of the latest Fox News polls.
Something remarkable is going on here. In the more ethnically diverse states, President Trump is busting through 50% in the new Fox News polling. So, for example, in Nevada, it's about 51% of white-only households. Arizona, about 60%. And yet, they're a little bit more neck and neck in the more white states. Wisconsin, 80% white-only. So the irony for Joe Biden, who served with Barack Obama, is serving with Kamala Harris, and the Democratic Party that swears it's for minorities, it's for young people, it's for union households. He is seeing this attrition and erosion and migration away from the Democratic Party among these core constituencies. Why is this relevant? Well, secretly, some Democratic consultants now are saying we need to get more of the white vote.
They need to get more of the white vote. What? You remember the Seinfeld episodes. I hope you do. And George and Kramer and Seinfeld, they have all the things going along, and then suddenly George is not getting the things he thought he should be getting in life and everything. He said, George's world is turning upside down. George's world is turning upside down. Biden's world is turning upside down. Now they're worried about, do we have enough white vote? Which, by the way, am I dating myself when I refer to Seinfeld episodes? I'm talking to a young woman at an establishment last night. It's all proper. Don't get anything on your mind here. And I mentioned something about Seinfeld, and she said, "What?" I said, "The Jerry Seinfeld Show." Said, "Well, that's before my time. I don't know." Now, that tells you, Larry, who the hell were you talking to? Well, we were just visiting. I was introduced to her. I didn't ask her age or anything. I said, okay. It kind of told me I must be an old person. I disagree. I told her, said, you can watch it, and they're available right now. I mean, you can still watch Woody Woodpecker cartoons on some channels. Not that I would, but give me a break. It's before my time. That got me shut up, didn't it? Quit laughing out there. I can hear you laughing even as I'm trying to continue. So Kellyanne Conway says the Bidens are now suddenly worried, where's the white vote we thought for sure we would have? And then she expands even more on that point.
Secretly, some Democratic consultants now are saying we need to get more of the white vote. I mean, imagine that they're banking on Joe Biden winning Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania and trying to get more of the white vote. I am stunned by the underlying demographic crosstabs in the Nevada and Arizona study. Quickly, in Nevada, Joe Biden is winning union households by 1 point. He carried them by 15 points, Bill, in 2020. Nevada has the highest foreclosures in the country, along with Washington, D.C. and California. It has the highest unemployment rate, particularly in the hospitality sector, which, of course, fuels the economy in Nevada. Nevada has not gone Republican presidentially since 2004, so that's a big deal that President Trump is above 50%. The other thing I would say to that is the only state in the country that watched a Democrat to Republican flip with the governorship in 2022. So this has been going that way for a while.
Going that way for a while, and do you see it stopping tomorrow? No, of course it won't. The constrictions that Joe Biden is now putting at the border, will that slow the mass onslaught down? Maybe. Or they'll just go around it. And talking about how the economy is affected by the service industries and so forth, and how that has ripple effects, I'm looking at a report from the New York Times citing data from CoStar. I don't know anything about CoStar, but the New York Times is citing them in talking about the cost of a hotel room is at a record high in New York City. You know why? in part due to the ongoing migrant crisis, squeezing the number of hotel rooms available for tourists. If you're going to New York City, and if you can, you're going to go as cheap as you can, and you want a nice place, a safe place, not roach-infested, but at the same time, you're not going to be staying at the Waldorf. If you are, great, nice place to stay, but it's pretty expensive. But they're saying the average daily rate for a hotel stay in New York City increased about 8.5%. It now costs minimum of $300 for one night in New York City. And that's before taxes, tourism tax, city tax, New York state tax, and so forth. And it's because of the crisis. There are so many illegals now in New York, they've had to open up hotels and say, sell us some rooms at a great discount so we can house illegals. That means the tourists are left out. And then there's another part, Kellyanne Conway points out, that exists in these polls, and this is another surprise.
The gender gap is real, but guess what, Bill? It's not just Trump with women. Biden is having a devil of a time winning the male vote. Biden's gender gap with men is scary. He's losing men by 18 points in Nevada to Joe Biden, where Trump is trailing women by about 9 points. So people love to talk about the gender gap. They love to talk about suburban women. Got news for you. Men live in the suburbs too. And Joe Biden is not, he's underperforming among his core constituencies from 2020.
Yeah. And on top of that, again, they're going to tell you whatever they think you will buy. We're ahead in the polls. I just read the piece from The Hill, I said. Points that Trump's lead over Biden is slipping because he's been convicted. And, of course, sometimes that comes back to bite him in the butt, doesn't it? You can make what you want of these latest surveys, but it's clear that some on the left are suffering TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, especially at leftist state-controlled media and outlets. That story when we continue.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
You want to give someone something which they will really enjoy? Give them a Cafe Napoli gift card. You pick the amount, and they pick which of the Cafe Napolis they want to visit. Cafe Napoli in Clayton, Cafe Napoli in Town and Country, Napoli 3 on the streets of St. Charles, or right next door, Napoli C. The Napoli gift card. It's the perfect gift for anyone, or your entire office. Cafe Napoli. Cafe Napoli.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
And the irony here, I mean, let's step back for a minute and think about this. It's a gun charge. Now, understand that what the Republicans want to do is allow everyone to buy guns everywhere without ever having to tell the federal government anything. Right. They are so totally opposed to the idea that the federal government gets to know anything about them and their gun purchases. They don't believe in the law that he is being prosecuted under.
As if they don't really believe in it. Of course they believe in it. What do we tell them every time they want more gun control laws? Enforce the laws you have. But they want to turn that around. It's another example of Trump derangement syndrome. Now, yesterday, I played you a clip of Byron Donalds, Congressman Byron Donalds, castigating a man who had called him out for saying that he thought Jim Crow laws were good. I didn't give you the full story because I had too many things on my plate because we were focusing a lot on D-Day. But if you had a chance, and I hope you do often, listen to Speaker Tim Jones and Chris Arp's program right before my program. And Chris yesterday brought up the same story and gave you a more complete story than I did. Kudos to him. But just in case you missed it, I think it's worth going through again. It's this argument, this blowback from Congressman Donalds started because Congressman Hakeem Jeffries made this ridiculous statement.
Mr. Speaker, it has come to my attention that a so-called leader has made the factually inaccurate statement that black folks were better off during Jim Crow. That's an outlandish, outrageous, and out-of-pocket observation. we were not better off when a young boy named Emmett Till could be brutally murdered without consequence because of Jim Crow. We were not better off when black women could be sexually assaulted without consequence because of Jim Crow. We were not better off when people could be systematically lynched without consequence because of Jim Crow. We were not better off when children could be denied a high-quality education without consequence because of Jim Crow. We were not better off when people could be denied the right to vote without consequence because of Jim Crow. How dare you make such an ignorant observation? You better check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Hakeem Jeffries, congressman from Brooklyn. And he was referring to something Congressman Byron Donalds had said. And Donalds flashed right back.
We've reached a point where you can't even talk about how they're censoring you without them censoring you. I think Dave Chappelle was right when he said, it shouldn't be this dangerous to talk. So what is it exactly that the lovers of censorship want from us?
Well, that was not Byron Donalds responding, but what he had made clear that he's just talking about how many Americans were living and stuck under Jim Crow is what he was trying to say. Not saying it was better, except of the fact that families were more coherent and together at that time. Before we wrap up this hour, I want to take you back to yesterday. And my boots on the ground correspondent in Chicago pulled something up I had heard about before, but never had taken time to review. I regret I hadn't. But that Eisenhower, General Eisenhower, overseeing D-Day and Normandy, had an alternate speech prepared in case it all failed. Imagine that. He wrote this letter stating, our landings have failed to gain a satisfactory foothold, and I have withdrawn the troops. My decision to attack at this time and place was based upon the best information available. The troops, the air, and the Navy did all of that. Bravery and devotion to duty could do. If any blame or fault attaches to the attempt, it is mine alone. Signed, General Eisenhower. Ready to accept and have a backup statement. And he actually dated the letter July 5 by mistake when it should have been June 5. But he was ready to say, give me the blame, and I'm sorry for the loss of our lives. You don't want to miss our second hour. More votes and polls. And remember our pledge, one nation under God.
You can hear podcasts of this program at Larry Connors USA Facebook. Larry Connors USA Facebook.
If you like premium cigars and spirits, take my advice. Check out Lit Cigar Lounge in Chesterfield. The Lit Cigar owners just got back from a major convention in Vegas, and now every day, Lit is getting shipments of special cigars that will certainly amaze you. Check the Lit Cigar Facebook, staying on top of special events. Also, Lit can host a private event for you, your friends, your business. LitSTL.com. LitSTL.com. Lit Cigar Lounge in Chesterfield.
News, analysis, opinion.
USA, USA. That's a big game, man.
She's really losing control.
People in China didn't ask me about people mowing each other down in a mall.
This is News Talk STL.
It is their responsibility.
He is a metastasizing agent.
We're all keeping a close eye on this.
Illegal immigration is crazy right now.
The United States is not being overrun.
News Talk STL.
It is a crisis at the border without question.
At newstalkstl.com. Talk radio made in St. Louis.
Very excited for what you guys are doing for the St. Louis community.
For St. Louis.
Relevant local talk.
Saying what we are thinking.
This is News Talk STL.
You guys are awesome. I love you. And it's a tremendous honor to be on the station.
News, analysis, and opinion.
Thanks for covering the local angle.
People, this is America.
We better open our eyes.
Really local, really good.
News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1 and newstalkstl.com.
Are you thinking about buying medicine online? A search for online pharmacies yields more than 20 million results. But which ones can you trust? Medicines bought from unlicensed online pharmacies can be dangerous. You may get a fake drug, your condition may get worse, or you may experience a bad reaction. Don't put your health at risk. To learn how to find an online pharmacy that's safe and legal, visit fda.gov/BeSafeRx. A message from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration.
Tony Colombo here, reminding you to join us for the Bluff City Outdoors radio show and podcast, where we talk fishing, hunting, camping, and everything else involving the great outdoors. Brought to you by Bluff City Outdoors in Alton. The Bluff City Outdoors Show, Saturdays at 11 a.m. right here on News Talk STL.
No matter how large or small your digging project may be, no matter how urban or rural, you must always call 811 before any digging project. 811 is our national one-call number, alerting your local utility companies to come out and mark any lines they have near your dig site. So before you do this or this, make sure you do this. For digging projects big or small, make the call to 811. Brought to you by Common Ground Alliance.
Hey, it's Katie, reminding you to subscribe to our show podcast so you never miss anything that happens here at News Talk STL. Get our podcasts every day on the show pages at newstalkstl.com, or just subscribe to your favorite shows on Spotify, Apple, Google, Amazon, or anywhere else you get your podcasts.
I drive my bus in a busy city. That's why road safety is so important to me. I know that I must slow down and be extra careful when I make a wide turn. Buses need more room than cars. Everyone can help keep our roads safe. Next time you're driving, remember to give buses plenty of time and space to finish turning before driving ahead. Let's all plan to share the road safely. Learn how at www.sharetheroadsafely.gov.
So many ways to listen to News Talk STL.
Come join the conversation. All you have to do is say,
Hey Alexa, play News Talk STL.
Welcome to News Talk STL, conservative talk radio for St. Louis.
No matter how large or small your digging project may be, no matter how urban or rural, you must always call 811 before any digging project. 811 is our national one-call number, alerting your local utility companies to come out and mark any lines they have near your dig site. So before you do this or this, make sure you do this. For digging projects big or small, make the call to 811. Brought to you by Common Ground Alliance.
If you find yourself feeling out of place in the world, it's comforting to know conservative values
Haven't been abandoned everywhere. The far left wants to destroy conservative values in America.
This is News Talk STL. Welcome home.
Hey, it's Nick Schroer. To preserve this nation, to preserve the experiment in liberty that our founders envisioned, we must take a stand and fight. Join me Sunday nights at 8 p.m. only on News Talk STL.
Stand and Fight with Nick Schroer. Brought to you by Missouri Wild Alchemy at MissouriWild.com.
This is News Talk STL.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is expected to visit Washington next month. He's scheduled to address a joint meeting of Congress on July 24th, and it is expected to be a contentious speech as political divisions grow over Israel's military operation in Gaza. And this comes as heavy fighting is being reported in the southern city of Rafah once again. Residents tell Reuters that Israeli forces engaged in fierce fighting overnight, with tanks trying to advance further west.
They are trying to advance closer, and the fierce fighting will continue to accelerate, and there seems to be no quick end to what's happening. And this means an expansion. If they are going to go ahead and move forward, if they're going to move forward and begin to go after the Hezbollah targets, which would be primarily Lebanon, that is going to escalate everything. We know that Israel is already fighting on more than the Gaza Strip front. They're fighting anyone and everyone. But Now, if they're going to go after Hezbollah, things are going to escalate rapidly. Thanks for joining us. Here we are, hour number 2 of Larry Connors USA. And glad to have you with us. We're here every Monday through Friday from 6 to 8 p.m. And reminding you, when we're on the air, we are streaming video for you. You can watch the program. You can watch it at News Talk STL Rumble, Facebook, and Twitter. And you can also watch it at Larry Connors USA, Rumble, Facebook, Twitter. And you can also go back later and pull up either audio and or video. And at that point, watch at your pleasure. And when you do then, it's a perfect opportunity for you to share with someone else. Get them involved in the program. That way they will know what is happening and be on top of things. I don't want you to believe that we don't appreciate you listening live. I know many of you do. But I know you also have other things going on in your lives, so we're trying to accommodate you. And we always appreciate you sharing these programs with others. All right, so here we are looking at the situation with Israel is going to start considering, do we move forward and step up the action against Hezbollah? Because they've been targeted by Hezbollah repeatedly. How many times should they sit there and take it on the chin without really doing anything? We do know this, that the rockets and the missiles being fired from the Lebanon area along the northern part of Israel have continued to increase. There is a big meeting that is coming up July 24 with Netanyahu coming in to the U.S. And at the same time, we've got Israel deciding what's it going to do about Hezbollah. If the target date for the Netanyahu visit would be July 24, and there's talk that Israel is going to take action directly against Hezbollah and Lebanon, maybe by the 15th of this month, that could change the timetable for Netanyahu's visit to the U.S. But let's say the date holds together. Here's the way it's viewed by Chris Livesay for CBS News.
It is a bipartisan visit, but the big question is whether or not he's actually going to meet with President Biden. It's a very awkward time for the two to be in the same city at the same time. If Biden does choose to meet with him, what is that going to look like? Does he smile when he meets Benjamin Netanyahu, or does he scowl at him because of the ongoing rift that exists between the White House and Netanyahu's conduct of this war? And does he want to risk alienating the moderates or the conservatives in the United States just before an election? It's a very, very big question, especially as we have President Biden now starting to worry about what the relationship is going to be like with his presumed opponent in the next presidential election, former President Donald Trump.
And it's not going to be a presumed candidate. It is going to be Donald Trump. The real presumption would be upon the Democrats, who is going to be your candidate. As I told you, they have decided to do a viral nomination. Virtual nomination, I should say. It might be viral as well. Because they want to make sure that he's nominated by all their Democrat states. In Ohio, they've had trouble getting Biden on the ballot. So by their virtual nomination, he's already got the nomination cinched. There's no, quote, drama as to calling out the states in order. We declare our votes for Joe Biden, the next president and continuing president of the United States. I don't even want to hear it anyway, but that's what's going to be happening in Chicago this August. And I'm going to count on my boots on the ground correspondent in Chicago to be give me some reports from time to time. We have the issue also going on with this administration. They are preaching that we cannot be isolationist. That's what they're preaching. I guess they want Israel to be isolated, because even at the D-Day commemoration yesterday, Biden made a point of talking about how we have Ukraine fighting a tyranny and a tyrant in Russia and Putin. He did not mention how Israel is under constant besiege by terrorist groups funded for and paid for by Iran, China, and Russia. And that D-Day was all about stopping Hitler from taking over Europe and the genocide of Jews. There's a direct correlation there, but he didn't even mention that. So back to the possibility that Hezbollah has to be encountered. A report this morning from Fox News gives you a clear indication of how fast things are ramping up.
All right, I do want to get to the latest right now coming in out of the north as the Israel Defense Forces released video a short time ago. Take a look at your screen showing Israeli fighter jets striking Hezbollah military structures overnight in Lebanon. The IDF saying the strikes are in retaliation for the terror group's rocket and drone attacks on civilians there in northern Israel. A drone attack earlier in the week in northern Israel killed an Israeli reservist and injured at least 10 other people. And now Israel's top military general in the north says the army is ready to wage war on the Hezbollah terror group if need be.
If need be, and of course, if they do that, how fast would it ramp up? And they're ready. They're ready. They know the object, what they'll have to do. They're well into their stages of planning. But the other part of that equation is, if Israel does that, what would they expect to be the response from Hezbollah?
All targets are open, whereas right now they're maintaining their target area to the northern front, 10 kilometers from Lebanon, and trying to hit mostly military targets, about 55% military targets, and the rest are civilian targets, but mostly in areas evacuated from civilians, or at least 90% of civilians. Once we go to a full-scale war, Haifa, Sfat, Tveria, and obviously the Holy Grail would be somewhere around Tel Aviv. On our side, it would mean a ground maneuver, an invasion into South Lebanon, hitting Hezbollah in their own court, and not only artillery and accurate strikes like we're doing right now.
Now, reference those accurate strikes. There was a strike at a UN medical facility the other day in Gaza, and there were innocent civilians killed. And there was also a strike at a nearby facility, but it also ignited munitions stored at another facility where, again, refugees were gathered. They're making it very clear that we're doing the best we can as we can, but even when it comes to admitting what we're doing, yes, civilians are getting in the way, and that is because Hamas wants them to be in the way. And again, here's how Israel is having to deal with Hamas and the civilians.
They don't deny that it was indeed on a UN school where thousands of Palestinian civilians were taking refuge, but they condemned Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad for using those civilians as human shields. Now, this has been the accusation of Israel since the beginning of this war, that yes, indeed, civilians are dying. And that's especially true when you consider that refugees cannot flee the Gaza Strip because Egypt has kept its border closed. But the onus is on Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad for using those civilians as human shields.
The onus is on Hamas, but the criticism is directed at Israel. Why? Because it fits the narrative. And you've got these idiot college students that are protesting, sometimes along with paid protesters, not even knowing the full facts of the stories. With their numerous surveys coming out as we get closer and closer to Election Day, you can see them accelerate. And there's a new survey out right out of Fox News, Maria Bartiromo.
New Fox News polls reveal former President Trump leading President Biden in Nevada, in Arizona, and in Florida. And the two are tied in the usually blue state of Virginia. Voters in all four states say they trust former President Trump over President Biden on handling both the economy as well as immigration. Meanwhile, President Biden shares his thoughts on the upcoming debate with former President Trump last night in an ABC interview. Watch this.
Things he said are off the wall. I want to be a dictator on day one. I want to move in a direction where he talks about, suspending the Constitution. All I have to do is hear what he says, remind people what he says and what I believe, what he believes. He's about him. I'm about the country.
Joe Biden is about lying to you and distorting what was said. Trump did say in a joking manner, first day I'm going to be a dictator. And by that, he said, I'm going to do really what Joe Biden did, as quote, the first day. He reversed everything I put into place. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to reverse everything he put into place. First day. Didn't say we continue. Didn't say we're going to run under dictatorship. Did not say I will stay in office until I'm forcibly removed or assassinated. He didn't say anything at all like that. But don't let the facts get in the way of a good story. It never does for the left. Now, reference these polls that have come out as you were hearing them unveiled by Maria. One of the counselors that had served previously for Trump and the administration has also been watching this, former Trump counsel analyst Conway, and her view of the polls is very interesting.
Something remarkable is going on here. In the more ethnically diverse states, President Trump is busting through 50% in the new Fox News polling. So, for example, in Nevada, it's about 51% of white-only households. Arizona, about 60%. And yet, they're a little bit more neck and neck in the more white states. Wisconsin, 80% white-only. So the irony for Joe Biden, who served with Barack Obama, is serving with Kamala Harris, and the Democratic Party that swears it's for minorities, it's for young people, it's for union households. He is seeing this attrition and erosion and migration away from the Democratic Party among these core constituencies. Why is this relevant? Well, secretly, some Democratic consultants now are saying we need to get more of the white vote.
What does it mean? They can't make it happen. They can't make it happen. It's beginning to come undone. Kellyanne Conway saying they're not getting even the white vote. If they don't have what they are counting on as a very good base, they're not getting the black vote. They're not getting the Hispanic vote. Now they're not really getting the white vote base that they were counting on. I'd say at this point they might as well throw the towel in, but they're not going to. Here is, again, Kellyanne Conway expanding on that point.
Secretly, some Democratic consultants now are saying we need to get more of the white vote. I mean, imagine that they're banking on Joe Biden winning Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania and trying to get more of the white vote. I am stunned by the underlying demographic crosstabs in the Nevada and Arizona study. Quickly, in Nevada, Joe Biden is winning union households by 1 point. He carried them by 15 points, Bill, in 2020. Nevada has the highest foreclosures in the country, along with Washington, D.C. and California. It has the highest unemployment rate, particularly in the hospitality sector, which, of course, fuels the economy in Nevada. Nevada has not gone Republican presidentially since 2004, so it's a big deal that President Trump is above 50%. The other thing I would say to that is the only state in the country that watched a Democrat to Republican flip with the governorship in 2022. So this has been going that way for a while.
And if it's been going that way for a while, and yet why were they ignoring it? Maybe very much because of what Hillary Clinton did when she was running against Trump the first time. I don't really need to go campaign in the blue states. We've got that. That's the blue wall he cannot get over. He can't break through. We don't need to spend time and money in those states. Trump did. And I remember so distinctly the night of the election. when all the pundits had said Hillary's going to just sweep Trump out to sea. And they were thinking he might get more popular vote. But our Constitution says it's not the popular vote, it's the Electoral College vote. And they're saying here you've got electoral votes in play in these blue states that there's no way Trump can get hold of those, so he can't win. Well, she actually got more of the popular vote, assuming they're all legal. And I won't really assume that. And she did not hold on to those blue states where she didn't bother campaigning. She lost electoral votes, which meant he broke through. And then there's another issue that the Democrats are facing this time around, and that has to do with age.
The gender gap is real, but guess what, Bill? It's not just Trump with women. Biden is having a devil of a time winning the male vote. Biden's gender gap with men is scary. He's losing men by 18 points in Nevada to Joe Biden, where Trump is trailing women by about 9 points. So people love to talk about the gender gap. They love to talk about suburban women. Got news for you. Men live in the suburbs too. And Joe Biden he's underperforming among his core constituencies from 2020.
Underperforming. Now, this is after he's been convicted in the New York City court. They thought that would put the nail in the coffin for him. And they got all these other cases hanging in the balance, and they're not going to be heard before the November election. And, of course, the appeals he's going to carry out against the New York trial will have to be expedited. The New York Supreme Court won't go along with him, but then he'll move it to the Supreme Court. And they will expedite it because they realize it's important because the man is running for president. And built upon that philosophy, if we can just convict him, we will win. I got a story coming up says, don't buy that argument either. Lock and load. Ready on the right.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
Question, do you know what vermiculite is? It is an insulation in the attics of hundreds of thousands of homes and public buildings. Looks like kitty litter, but often contains asbestos. Wellington Environmental is the largest company in the Midwest that can remove that hazard for you. Wellington has what is called the General, a powerful industrial vacuum that can suck vermiculite out of the attic. Hang on, there's something else you should know. Many of you might qualify for up to a $4,000 rebate. You should at least contact Wellington to see if you qualify. And here's something else. Wellington arrives at the time they give you, not sometime within 4 hours. 314-644-4930. 644-4930. WellingtonSTL.com. WellingtonSTL.com. Wellington Environmental. Your world. Cleaner, better, safer. And be well with Wellington.
Talk radio made in St. Louis.
What you guys are doing for the St. Louis community.
For St. Louis. Relevant local talk.
Saying what we are thinking.
This is News Talk STL.
No, you guys are awesome. I love you. And it's a tremendous honor to be on the station.
News, analysis, and opinion.
Thanks for us covering the local angle.
People, this is America.
We better open our eyes.
Really local, really good.
News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1
and newstalkstl.com.
I have a personal story about why I trust McGuire Moving and Storage. A relative needed to escape an unhealthy relationship. Josh, Christine, and the McGuire team were understanding, even comforting. That's why I'm honored to endorse McGuire. Since 1935, McGuire's been moving and caring for families. So, moving a home, office, local, or long distance. McGuireMoving.com. McGuireMoving.com.
Hey, St. Louis, my name is Rob Carter. My new primetime show will explore the collaboration between corrupt media and our corrupted political system. From manipulated elections, open borders, mandated medicines, and unconstitutional lockdowns, What is going on? The Rob Carter Show. Let's talk about it on The Rob Carter Show. Join me weeknights from 8 to 10 p.m. on News Talk STL.
Rob Carter, live and local, weeknights at 8 on News Talk STL.
Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta, now open in the district of Chesterfield Valley. Napoli has the only coal-fired pizza oven. That means an incredible taste you cannot get anywhere else. So enjoy a unique pizza at Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in the district. And then walk a few doors down and enjoy premium cigars and drinks at Lit Cigar Lounge. There's a perfect way to end the evening. Napoli Pizza followed by Lit Cigar Lounge. A winning combination.
This is News Talk STL.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
I believe you gave millions to DeSantis back in the day. Do you now back Trump?
I'm 100% behind Trump. And, Stuart, you can just feel the momentum accelerating for Trump after this trial. It's not anything I've seen before, except maybe Obama in 2008. I mean, I think that's where this is headed, that kind of momentum for Trump. And you talked about the fundraiser in Southern California. I'm supposed to go to that. It's sold out. I mean, I'm on the wait list. So, President Trump, if you see this, I need to get off the wait list. You never see that.
They put you on the wait list. I don't know how many millions you've given to DeSantis or anybody else, but you've given millions, and you're on a wait list? I can't understand that.
Well, they're maxed out. They've got the number of people there, and so it's interesting. I've never seen that before. And the minimum to walk in the door there in that Southern California fundraiser is $5,000 a person. So you don't normally see that at that level. At that level, you still have availability.
But not this time around. That is appearing with Stuart Varney on Fox, the Point Bridge founder, a big hedge fund, Hal Lambert, and saying what is going on right now is the momentum that has been built up since Donald Trump is now, quote, a convicted felon. Yeah, the left was sure, boy, if we get that convicted felon label on him, it will shut everything down. They live in their fantasy world, and they can stay in their fantasy world. The reality is, Americans who might even have been anti-Trump see what's going on. And they know the difference between justice and a lynch mob. And they're not going to stand still for it. Because the fear is, if they can do it to him, they'll damn well do it to you. And, of course, Trump continues to preach that. Now, I don't want you to live in fear that they'll be coming after you, but at the same time, when you look at what they have done, there was a question raised the other day that, is it everybody that goes to church that believes in voting for family values? Are they all enemies of the state now? Under the Biden administration, they weaponized the FBI, the IRS, other areas of the DOJ, Justice Department to target people, single them out, basically put them on trial for living their lives. That's what they have been doing, and that's what they will continue doing until there's a correction. I mean, a seismic correction. And it starts at the top. Just as it's rotted like a fish from the top down, you got to start at the top to fix it. When Donald Trump went in the first time claiming he was going to clean up the swamp, he had no idea how massive and big that thing was. And he relied on people that were still part of the swamp, but kind of hanging on and trying to ingratiate themselves to Donald Trump. And as wise as he was, he pulled in some people that were not that good for him and did not help, and in fact, hindered him. This time around, he'll be wiser. But keep in mind, he was not a political animal when you got down to it in the beginning. And this time around, he's admitted, and I tend to agree with him. I've heard others say it, and I do agree with it. These charges they brought up on him in New York, the statute of limitations on the money being exchanged, whatever arguments you want to make on it, it was done and over with. And a lot of people sign NDAs, non-disclosure agreement, one, to get access to company information to see what they're doing, but you got to agree you're not going to share it with anyone or you'll face severe penalties. Civil for sure and possible criminal. And in this case, if Stormy Daniels had signed an NDA that I won't talk about having an affair with Donald Trump, that was all fair game. And we don't know for sure beyond her statements that there was an affair. Don't know if there wasn't a shakedown. If I were going to put money on the line, I'd say there probably was. But that had nothing to do with the ability to become president. And it had nothing to do with the charges they ended up pulling together. They pulled them all together and say, well, then you tried to cover up that crime of a misdemeanor that now the statute of limitations has passed. But if he had not run for office again, if he decided, I'm just going to stay at Mar-a-Lago, I'm going to try to fire up the nation, and I'll support someone else the best I can, but I'm going to get out of the target site. He didn't do it. Do you believe he's putting himself to this stress point just for ego? Do you believe it's just for the United States' future, our republic's future? Do you believe it's a combination? Does it make any difference? Does it make any difference as to why he's doing it compared to those who are coming after him with everything they've got, creating crimes, recreating crimes, and charges, I should say, when they know they don't really have much of a chance, but we got to stop him because we don't have anything to run on the Democrat side. I saw them put out a list today, and everything on the list could be quickly countered as to why Joe Biden has achieved so much. And it can all be wiped out very quickly as to, are you living as well as you did 4+ years ago? Answer that one. Are you living as secure as you did 4+ years ago? Is our nation safer as it was 4.5+ years ago? The answer to all those is no. But I don't have to tell you. You're smart enough to know it yourself. So here you've got the Point Bridge founder, Hal Lambert, talking about how this momentum from the conviction is basically building even more power and effort for Trump. And then he talks about how one of Trump's attorneys tried to turn it.
You had one of Trump's attorneys on with George Stephanopoulos this weekend. George Stephanopoulos threatened to cut his mic for saying that the trial was political and said there was no evidence of that. Well, when he spouted off the evidence, he slunk away. Stephanopoulos just ended it. I mean, it's amazing. And then for them to say, oh, we're raising money off this verdict as well, well, that obviously makes it political if they're saying they're raising money off of this verdict. The whole thing is political. Everybody sees it. And I was in an event this weekend, non-political friend deal, people coming up to me saying that never talk politics, wanting to talk about this. Yeah. The momentum is really there for Trump right now.
But the momentum really kicked off when those guilty verdicts came down. That's what's given it this impetus, right? It not started then, but it really picked up steam then.
Oh, 100%. That's what $70 million in small dollars, over $100 million of large dollar donations since the verdict. I mean, that's amazing, amazing numbers. You're talking at small dollar, you're talking 700,000 to 1 million individual donors giving money to President Trump after the verdict in just a few days. And that's going to keep going on.
That's going to keep going on. And there's a long time between now and November. And, of course, a lot of campaigns to be run. And a lot of it is being spent, obviously, in red states, but also in purple states and in states where they might think they are solid blue, but they're not so much anymore. And the other question that's been raised is, has Biden suddenly decided to try to shut down the invasion open border because they think they've got enough votes inside, folks that aren't even supposed to vote. But it's really because of the disaster that's come with it. Again, back to Hal Lambert, the Point Bridge hedge fund founder.
You're talking, at small dollar, you're talking 700,000 to 1 million individual donors giving money to President Trump after the verdict in just a few days. And that's going to keep going on. I think, if you look at what the trial was about, it really is more than Trump. People realize this is damaging to America. We're the rule of law country, and people view this as political, mainly because you look at the DA, he's been in the business in the last few years of reducing felonies. 60% of felony charges were cut to misdemeanors. He went the other direction on this. Yep. He took a misdemeanor and made it a felony. If that's not political, what is?
Of course it is. And they know it's political. And their supporters know it's political. It's not justice. But the other part of that is, if they can do it to Trump, can they do it to you? Yes, they can do it to you. Will they do it to you? Very likely. I've got a story in front of me that we're going to get into in the next segment that says, I don't care what your standing is, if you don't confirm to what they say you should accept, you will be a target. And we already know parents that showed up at PTA meetings complaining that, hey, my kids are not being properly educated or they're actually being indoctrinated. They suddenly, according to the AG General, were a terrorist, although he said, I didn't mention terrorists. Mealy mouth. Garland did, in such a way that the FBI understood what he meant. But the story I've got coming up will reaffirm to you, if you're not with them, you're the enemy. That's not the way we used to be. You could have Democrats and Republicans, and we'd have battles, but you weren't an enemy. We're still all Americans. Right now, the way they're operating, we're not all Americans. They think only they're the Americans.
You can connect with Larry on Twitter at Larry Connors USA.
John Beal knows that new roofing companies can look big and trustworthy on the internet, but the fact is 96% of new roofing companies go out of business within the first 5 years. John Beal has a reputation for excellence, reliability, plus lowest cost, best roof, best guarantee. Those here today, gone tomorrow roofers, they can't match John Beal. For home or business, trust my friend John. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF.
No matter how large or small your digging project may be, no matter how urban or rural, you must always call 811 before any digging project. 811 is our national one-call number, alerting your local utility companies to come out and mark any lines they have near your dig site. So before you do this or this, make sure you do this. For digging projects big or small, make the call to 811, brought to you by Common Ground Alliance.
Have you seen the 2024 Toyota RAV4? Boy, that's an outstanding vehicle, and Ackerman Toyota has one just for you at the best price. Ackerman is the #1 volume Toyota dealer in the area. Want a Camry? Maybe you want something bigger. A Toyota crossover. All the performance of an SUV, but a more compact size. Ackerman Toyota at Hampton and 44. AckermanToyota.com. Ackerman Toyota for life.
The United States Deputy Sheriff's Association is a national nonprofit and the large enforcement. The USDSA assists city, county, state, and federal agencies with free safety equipment donations and officer survival training, along with cash donations to families of law enforcement officers who perished in the line of duty, a citizen awareness program, and more. For more information on United States Deputy Sheriff's Association, please visit usdeputy.org.
If you like premium cigars and spirits, take my advice. Check out Lit Cigar Lounge in Chesterfield. The Lit Cigar owners just got back from a major convention in Vegas, and now every day, Lit is getting shipments of special cigars that will certainly amaze you. Check the Lit Cigar Facebook, staying on top of special events. Also, Lit can host a private event for you, your friends, your business. LitSTL.com. LitSTL.com. Lit Cigar Lounge in Chesterfield.
This is News Talk STL.
Must be the whiskey.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
All right, so we're talking about how you have different folks trying to come forward and persecute anyone that disagrees with them, and in particular, if they have the power of a DOJ behind them, which they do. Since you got Merrick Garland running the DOJ, and under the Biden administration, anybody that was against them, they're going to target. Let me break it down for you. One part involves what happened yesterday. A federal judge upheld a 4-month prison sentence handed down to former Trump White House advisor, host of the War Room podcast, Steve Bannon. He is a conservative broadcaster, ordered to report to prison now on July 1, just 2 weeks before the Republican National Convention, 4 months before Election Day. Bannon told reporters outside the courthouse yesterday, "There's not a prison built or jail built that will ever shut me up. We'll go all the way to the Supreme Court if we need to." He was convicted 2 years ago for refusing to comply with a subpoena issued by the House Select Committee January 6th. Now, that committee in itself and the way it's put together, there are a lot of questions. Now, you'll hear Nancy Pelosi say it was bipartisan. They had 2 Republicans on it. One was Kinzinger of Illinois, who's not really a Republican. And, of course, other Liz Cheney of Wyoming, not really a Republican. The ones that the Republicans wanted on at that time, Trey Gowdy and Jim Jordan, they wouldn't let them on. And the video the January 6th committee finally released for everyone to see of the assault upon the Capitol was very judiciously edited to present their view only. So 2 years ago, Bannon was convicted because he didn't comply with a subpoena. I'm still waiting for the House to get its act together, and that would include pushing it through the Senate to issue charges against Hunter Biden because he failed to show up for a subpoena as originally ordered. And also to carry out charges of perjury against him. And then aside from Bannon, let's say you're not a Bannon fan because he's been too close to Trump. The Department of Justice just filed criminal charges against a whistleblower at a Texas hospital. He is a surgeon. He completed his residency at the Texas Children's Hospital. He's been accused of HIPAA violations. Those are to protect you and your name and what surgery and medicines and treatment you're getting. They're valid, and yet they're often abused, much like child care services say, well, we can't give you details for the child's protection when the child has already been killed by the parents or the custodial folks that they were put in the custody of. It does nothing to protect the child at that time. But this doctor is accused of violations, indicted on 4 felony charges. And why? He said they wanted to intimidate me into silence using every federal technique they had at their disposal, but they failed. The only way to lose is to submit to corruption. It's time to fight back harder than ever. He said what was going on at Texas Children's Hospital, they were secretly conducting gender-affirming care on minors, meaning they were castrating boys, chopping off breasts of young girls because they had gender dysphoria and they believe they might be another gender. Gender-affirming care is one of the biggest misnomers ever. It is such a lie, and it's words that sound comforting. Gender-affirming. So he leaked documents from the Texas Children's Hospital to journalist Christopher Rufo back in May 2023. And the reporter said, nothing I got from the doctor included any patient's personal information. It was generally showing that they were operating a child gender clinic, even though the state had said it should be shut down, and it was supposed to be shut down. Because in Feb 2022, the Texas Attorney General issued an opinion stating gender-affirming care could be a form of child abuse under state law. And the following month, Texas Children's Hospital issued a statement saying it would stop all treatments and surgeries on children related to transgenderism. But they lied. They lied. That's what they put out there in public. So this doctor found and had evidence that, no, they were still doing it. He claimed that 3 days after the announcement from the hospital that they weren't going to do it, they were implanting a hormone device in an 11-year-old girl. He said over the next year, they continued to do that and more. And then recently, 2 federal agents showed up at his home and said he was a potential target for an investigation in violations of federal criminal law. So here we are looking at this doctor in Houston who said, I'm not going to be part of this. This is wrong. I'm not going to support it in any way. And here we are, June 7. His first court appearance is set next week, June 10, when they'll learn more about the charges related to it. Right now, they're not giving him that much, but they made it very clear, we're coming after you. And again, you have, in the midst of a lot of these folks, what we have identified now as TDS, Trump Derangement Syndrome. And it exists also within many of the leftist media and those part of them.
And I'm telling you, Trump could end up rolling the score. I've got the Congress. I've got the Supreme Court. I own it all. I am a dictator. It's very reasonable to assume that's where he's headed.
That is Chris Matthews of CNBC or MSNBC. I can't recall who he's with now. I could care less. Kind of on the outskirts anyway with them. But he just goes on and on that anything that happens now involving Trump, if he gets off with it, well, then it was rigged. They doesn't ever consider it. Maybe it was rigged against Trump or would be rigged against you. And, of course, they will point to the Hunter Biden case. Hunter's on trial. He's standing trial, just the way the system should work. But remember, this gun charge, the gun charges he's facing, it was going to be swept under the rug several months ago as part of a sweetheart deal. Just enter a guilty plea to it, which he had, and we'll forgive a bunch of these other charges relating to the IRS. And when the judge said, if he's facing additional charges, we cannot do this. So immediately he withdrew the guilty plea, and so now he's going through trial. And he may be called to testify on criminal charges next week. The prosecution basically has rested. And the final piece of testimony they brought in, or among them, Naomi Biden, Hunter Biden's daughter. And when she was taking the stand, there are pictures and reports that Hunter was dabbing his eyes with a tissue, but he paid very close attention to her. I say pictures, they probably painted pictures in the sense of the presentation in the room. I don't know if there are actual cameras allowed in there. Under cross-examination, she was asked by the prosecutor, do you know your father, and did you know he was doing drugs? She said, yes, I knew he was struggling with addiction. After my uncle died, that would be Bo, things got real bad. Yeah, they got real bad because Hunter then preyed upon Bo's widow. Literally preyed upon her. And she was asked, did you ever witness him using drugs? She said, no, I never saw him use them. And then as she was leaving, she hugged her dad on the way out. Jill Biden, the president's wife, and the president's sister looked upset when they walked out of the courtroom with Hunter. One part that they were bringing forward in the testimony as the prosecution was wrapping up as to, did you remember seeing remnants of crack cocaine or a crack pipe along with a gun in the vehicle? And she admitted there was a dusting of powder. Easy way to get out of that. So now they're thinking that they're going to have Hunter Biden testify, and has done some already to some extent, but once he does that, that opens up even more action next week. So whatever happens today is not going to be final. But here's what the Hunter legal defense apparently is hoping for. It is something called jury nullification. Jury nullification, in some cases, a runaway jury. Some legal experts are saying this jury might go rogue. Jury nullification occurs when a defendant is proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, but jurors disregard their oath to find him not guilty. Now, keep in mind, almost everyone that they seated on this jury in Delaware, the backyard of Joe Biden and the Biden family, they are Delaware. Almost everyone seated, let me correct that, at least 50% of those seated admitted they either had family, friends, or some relationship with someone that they knew was addicted to drugs, maybe alcohol. So they've been basically trying to prey upon that the entire trial, that don't you feel sorry for a guy that's so hung up, strung out on drugs? And if you've ever battled that in your family, thank God I have not had to do that. I cannot imagine what it's like. I can't imagine that where you reach a point where you feel so sorry for them, but you also reach a point they need to be held accountable. But they're also your child or your parent or a relative, and you don't want to see them go to jail, but can we get them into rehab and get things squared away? And it may or may not work. So they're preying upon those who have been in that situation. You got to feel sorry for Hunter. He claims, I don't even remember signing it, the document. The gun shop owner says, I asked him, are you sure you want to do this? You want to sign this? Now, whether or not he knew the stories at that time about Hunter Biden and drugs, I don't know. I don't know if that got brought up. But the bottom line is Hunter signed a federal document lying, saying he was not addicted to drugs, did not traffic in drugs of any type. Flat out lie. His ex-wife had said there were times he couldn't go 20 minutes without hitting a crack pipe. But the jury nullification, he is charged with one count of false statement in the purchase of a firearm, one count of possession of a firearm by a person who is an unlawful user of or addicted to a controlled substance, one count of false statement related to information required to be kept by a federal firearms licensed dealer. All of those are federal. Hunter used crack when he purchased a firearm, according to a variety of photos from the laptop, which yesterday an FBI expert came in and said the laptop was not tampered with. That's exactly the way we found it. So they were looking to say the laptop has false stuff on it. That got shot down. Many legal experts say a jury should easily convict Hunter. But even Jonathan Turley, who's often on Fox News as their analyst, and we've used on here, he in an interview with The Hill, he said, why shouldn't Hunter just plead guilty? Even without his earlier plea deal, a guilty plea would significantly reinforce a request to avoid jail time. Could also avoid the embarrassing trial. But he said there may be another strategy in play. Jury nullification. One defense lawyer watching it said, two issues are here. Biden did not know he was lying on the form because he thought when he was asked, are you using drugs, he thought that meant, right now? Oh, no, man, right now I'm not. That's one argument. The other, Biden did not identify as a drug addict at that time. Denied, denied, denied. That's the old Bill Clinton excuse. So even though all the facts say he's guilty, jury nullification, the jury goes rogue and says, you're free to leave the room. We are not going to convict you. That could happen. Remember our pledge, one nation under God.
You can follow Larry on Larry Connors USA Facebook. Larry Connors USA Facebook. This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.